All right, let's dive into a book from the Old Testament that you might have skipped over, but trust me, you don't want to. It's the book of Haggai. Yeah, it's short, but its message about our priorities and finding real purpose, it is absolutely huge. So let me ask you something. You ever have one of those seasons in your life where you feel like you're just spinning your wheels? You're putting in all the work, you're constantly busy, totally exhausted, but when you look back, it feels like you haven't actually gone anywhere. It's so frustrating, right? And just completely draining. Well, believe it or not, about 2,500 years ago, an entire nation was feeling that exact same way. The Israelites had just come back home to Jerusalem after decades of painful exile in Babylon. This was their big chance for a fresh start. But they hit a wall, and fast. All their efforts felt useless. And the reason for it? Well, it was not what they were expecting at all. So what was really going on? Well, this first part of their story is all about a comeback that totally stalled out. And it's a powerful look at what happens when our priorities get, well, completely backwards. Now, to really get this, we have to understand the temple. For the Israelites, this wasn't just a building, it was the building. It was the absolute heart of their entire world, their worship, their identity as a people, and most importantly, it was the one place they believed God's very presence dwelled with them. So when it was destroyed, it was a catastrophe. Rebuilding it was supposed to be job number one. And they started off great. They got back to Jerusalem, they cleared away the rubble, and they laid a brand new foundation for the temple. It was an awesome start. But then, they just stopped. For years, the most important project they had just sat there, totally abandoned. And this is where our main character, the prophet Haggai, steps onto the scene. God sends him to deliver a message that was, let's just say, direct. It was uncomfortable, but it was exactly what they needed to hear. It was a divine wake-up call. Haggai doesn't beat around the bush at all. He asks this just piercing question. Think about what he's saying here. They were spending their time, their money, their energy fixing up their own homes, paneling the walls, which was a real luxury back then, while God's house, the very center of their community, was still a pile of rocks. Okay, now this is where it gets really fascinating. Haggai draws a straight line between their priorities and what was happening in their lives. Look at this first column. This is what they were focused on. Their nice houses, their personal comfort, working hard for themselves. I mean, it seems normal, right? But then look at the second column, the result. Their crops were failing, their money seemed to disappear, they felt this deep, nagging sense of unfulfillment. Haggai's basically saying, hey, this struggle you're feeling, it's not just bad luck. It is a direct result of where you're putting your energy. So the message was crystal clear. Haggai wasn't just there to chew them out. He was offering them a way forward. He was saying, look, get back to what matters most. Put God first, finish this temple, and then you will start to see your own work flourish. It was this huge challenge, but it came with an even bigger promise. And you know what? The people actually listened. They got back to work. But that's not the end of the story. A new, sneakier problem popped up. Discouragement. And this next part is all about moving from our limited human point of view to God's much, much bigger perspective. It's one thing to get fired up and start a big project. It's a whole other thing to keep going when the reality doesn't quite match the dream. And that is exactly what happened here. As the walls of this new temple started to go up, the people's morale started to go way down. And this detail is just so human, so relatable. You had the older folks, the ones who could actually remember the first temple, Solomon's temple, in all its legendary glory. And they looked at this new, smaller, humbler building, and they just wept. Because in their eyes, what they were building felt like nothing compared to what they had lost. See, their discouragement was all based on comparing now to then. They were judging their work based on how it looked on the outside. But this is when God steps in, through Haggai, and offers a radical reframing of what glory even means. This right here is the turning point of the entire book. God makes this jaw-dropping promise. He says the glory of this smaller, less fancy temple will actually be greater than the first one. Why? Not because of gold or marble or size, but because God himself would fill it with his presence and grant his peace there. And this just lays out the difference so clearly. On the left, you've got the human view of glory. It's all about what we can see, right? Size, looks, how it stacks up to what came before. But now look at the right. This is God's definition. It's a total game changer. It's about what you can't see, his presence, his peace, the future purpose he has for it. The lesson is huge. True significance isn't measured by what the world sees. So this is way more than just a story about an old building. The lessons Haggai was teaching are unbelievably relevant for us right now. So let's break down what we can take away from this powerful little book. So what are the big lessons here? I think there are 4 main keys. First, prioritize God's work. Our own fruitfulness is directly connected to putting his priorities first. Second, trust in God's presence. True value isn't measured by how big or impressive our work looks, but by whether he is in it. Third, overcome discouragement. We do that by swapping our human definition of glory for God's. And finally, number 4, pursue faithfulness and purity. It's all about making sure our hearts are in the right place, that our actions flow from a desire to honor him. And this brings it right home, asking us some really tough questions. Are we more focused on our own paneled houses, our comfort, our careers, than on a bigger purpose? When we get discouraged because our efforts feel small, do we just give up? Are our hearts really aligned with what we're doing? Because if Haggai teaches us anything, it's that faithfulness, especially in the things that seem small and insignificant, is what really matters to God. So I'll just leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Maybe for you, it's a relationship that's been neglected, or a spiritual habit you let go of. Maybe it's a calling you've been putting off for years. What is the temple in your life that's been left as just a foundation? What is God calling you to start rebuilding today?